Okay, I'm back over here trying to solve this. And so I'm going to move the 3 first. So we're going to have 4 sine squared of theta is equal to 3. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So then those cancel. So that's going to be sine squared theta is equal to 3 over 4. Now I'm going to take the square root on both sides. So the square root of sine squared theta is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3 over the square root of 4. You take the square root of everything. Okay, so then this square root cancels the square. So now you're left with sine of theta is equal to plus or minus square root of 3 over 2. So now over here, we're going to start with the positive. So when is the sine of theta positive square root of 3 over 2? Now you don't have to put the positive right there if you don't want, okay? So when is the sine? So remember you need that's the y value. So then you go onto your unit circle and you find the y value where it's square root of 3 over 2. See right here? So that's pi over 3. So the sign is positive in the first quadrant, so it's going to be pi over 3. Theta is equal to pi over 3. And then it's also positive in the second quadrant. So the sign is positive here, and here's square root of 3 over 2. That's your y value right here. This is your y value, so it occurs at 2 pi over 3. So right here, you're going to put 2 pi over 3. Okay, so those are just two answers. Now we want the sine of theta equal to negative, because it has a negative right there, square root of 3 over 2. So remember, it's the y value, and the sign is negative in these two quadrants. It says right there, negative sign, and we want negative square root of 3 over 2. So here's negative, this is the y value, negative square root 3 over 2, it's at 4 pi over 3. And then the y value, negative square root of square root of 3 over 2, it's at 5 pi over 3. So the other two answers are 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So the angle theta is 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So then those are your answers right there. Okay, let's see if we can do this example over here. So I'm going to subtract the cosine of theta. Subtract the cosine of theta. But you can't combine these. Or, well, these don't make 0 over here. You can't combine these because that has a sign. So you're just going to write it as 2 cosine theta sine theta minus cosine theta. So notice that both of these two have a cosine. See how this has a cosine and this has a cosine? You're going to factor it out or use backward distributive property. So that's going to be the 2 sine theta minus 1 is equal to 0. If I were to distribute this, if I multiply this with this, I get this. If I multiply this with this, I get this. Okay, so move that there. So now I can set both factors equal to 0. So the cosine of theta is equal to 0. And then the 2 sine of theta minus 1 equals 0. So this one we're going to still continue to solve for the sine, which is 1. And then we divide by 2, which is sine theta is 1/2. So now we're going to look for our angles where this occurs. Remember, the cosine is the x value. Okay, so we're going to go and look at the x's. So that's 1. That's not 0. That's that. Oh, right here, the x is 0. So it's at pi over 2. So theta is equal to pi over 2. And notice that the x value is 0 right here. That's the cosine. So the x value is 0 at 3 pi over 2. So this equation right here has two answers. And then this equation, where's the sign positive? The sign is positive. So the sign is positive in the first quadrant and the second quadrant. And we're looking for 1/2, the y value. That's the y value. So the y value is the second number. Right here, that's the y value is 1/2, which is pi over 6. And 1/2 is 5 pi over 6. So theta is pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. So these are your answers right here. Okay, so now we're going to go over here and go to the next video to do this one.